Welcome back to my channel. Last time we discussed how to use InjectionToken, but that explanation wouldn't be completed without understanding how to provide a list of dependencies. For example, you might need a list of payment methods, or you need a set of templates for table cells. The key idea is this list often comes from multiple places, different teams, modules, or even organizations. So how can we manage this using Angular Dependency Injection system? That's exactly what I'll show you in this video. I'm Maksym Hrom and this channel is about web development. Let's get started. I'll jump to the project so we can see this in action. For this lesson, I'll use a file called constant.ts to store our tokens. This is just for demo purpose. In real project, ask your team where tokens and contracts should live. Let's say we want to collect API addresses to add to a whitelist. I created injection token with type like array of strings. For instance, I have a ChatGPT extension and I have to add its address to the array when feature is added to the project. So I have two addresses, a local API address and a ChatGPT fake address. So we can trust both of them. Let's inject them and check the browser console. I injected API whitelist token, and also I added console log to a constructor. Now we can verify it. I see both addresses, so it works as expected. Now, what if Angular version does not support the inject function? How can you inject this array? We covered this in a previous video. Use inject decorator on a constructor parameter. Just make sure to assign the correct type, string array in our case. Everything works even now. What are the common pitfalls with multi-providers? First, forgetting multi-true flag. Without this flag, Angular assumes you want to provide a single value and will throw an error. You see, Angular cannot mix multi-providers and regular providers at the same time. This issue is easy to fix, we just need to return it back. Another issue, overriding instead of extending. Angular walks up from the component to resolve providers. This is a frequent mistake, I've seen it in many real-world projects. Let's now emulate a real-life use case with HTTP Interceptor. I will start from module-based application because it's easy to make this mistake. I'm going to add HTTP Interceptor to do some work before or after each API request. In the app module, I provide an interceptor using the HTTP Interceptors token from Angular common HTTP with multi-flag. Let's generate a new interceptor with ngGenerate functional false foo. I've added console log to see when it works. Now let's provide it in module. We have provide section. HTTP interceptor from Angular common HTTP. We should use class for interceptor and don't forget to write multi-true. We will see nothing until API call happens. In the app component, I'm going to inject HTTPClient. In constructor, I made a GET request to a Google. Oops, error. You see null injector error. We should provide HTTPClient somehow. HTTPClient module is deprecated, but let's use it. And we see it works. I see foo interceptors console log and see course issue from Google. Of course, I cannot call Google from my site. What should we do instead to avoid this deprecation? Let me jump into HTTPClient module and see a suggestion. Here is the suggestion. We should use provideHttpClient function with interceptors from dependency injection instead. So let's try to do it. I commenting it out. If you jump into provideHttpClient, you can find this with interceptor from DI and the list of supported features for HTTP client. It's always good idea to jump into Angular types. And you see everything works as expected. Recently we have checked that in lazy module we can override some provider. Let's try to override HTTP interceptor provider in lazy module. To do this, I need one more interceptor. I have bar interceptor, and now I need to create a module. I'm going to create lazy module, and module should have a component. Lazy module should have a configuration for routing. In my example, it has only one route. I'm going to copy this to a lazy component. Now lazy component has everything from app component. And of course, we need routing in app level. App routing module, and we should add routes here. One router to navigate to lazy module, another router to do default redirection to lazy module. You see it works. Currently we see two withInterceptors log in the console, and currently we can break this environment. In lazy module, I have added HTTP interceptor token to provide bar interceptor at lazy level. And of course it doesn't work. Why I don't see bar interceptor in console? Take a look on a slide. Foo is provided in root and bar is provided in lazy. And HTTP client is provided on root too. Angular resolves HTTP client from the root and all its dependencies from the same injector. At this point, developers should find a reason and move providers to the root level and don't try to make it working on feature level. But typically, next step is providing HTTP client module again on lazy level, which must fix the issue. And now we have a second version of HTTP client with its own injectors. withInterceptor does not work for feature level. Every time when you add root provided service, it will work with root dependencies, but components will work with lazy level dependencies. So this solution is unstable and should be fixed. In console, you can see that we have withInterceptor for first call or for global level or root level. And we see bar interceptor without withInterceptor for feature level. What should we do? Provide HTTP client and all interceptor only once in the root and avoid registering HTTP client or HTTP interceptors in lazy modules. Now I want to reproduce this behavior for new standalone API setup. With the new functional APIs, we register interceptors using withInterceptors and provide HTTP clients. We can jump into provide HTTP clients and find withInterceptors. Also, we can jump into withInterceptors and find that we need to provide array of interceptors. Functional interceptors, not classes. Now I need an interceptor function, not a class. This function looks much better. I think it's a good improvement from Angular team. I added console log and now I am ready to register it. It will be withInterceptor from lowercase because it's a function. Also, code of this function is much simpler and I can use inject function inside it, which gives me the same level of flexibility. I'm going to make a call from app component. Let's verify it. I see message in console. Now I'm going to add lazy component and try to break environment like I did in the old application. Generating bar interceptor. Copy paste console. And generate component lazy. In lazy component, I'm going to make a call. Also, I need two routes, one for lazy component and another for default redirection. Routes are located at app routes. As I said, one to load lazy component, another one to redirect to lazy route. Let's verify. We see two calls and we also being redirected to lazy. We have two calls of withInterceptor as expected. Now let's register bar interceptor using another provideHttpClient call with its own withInterceptors. Pretty easy, right? What do I see? I see bar interceptor as a second call and foo interceptor at the first call. Only bar interceptor runs, not foo interceptor, right? With the new version, I feel like I am doing something wrong, but still Angular does not protect me from mistake. Why it matters? Let's say a team develops a feature and adds its own lazy loaded interceptor. Suddenly, all global interceptors are disabled, exposing the application to potential vulnerabilities. To prevent this, group your interceptors and register them at the root level. I will talk about it at the end of this playlist, but I can show how to solve our specific case. In app-config, you can see all these provide something functions. We can create the same function to expose our providers. Let's remove these providers from lazy level. I need a file, lazyproviders.ts. Provide means it's a function to provide something, and lazy it's a name of our feature. It will be a function which will return environmental providers. To do it, I need to return environmental providers call. We created similar function to export our providers. To make it more stable, I wrapped it in makeEnvironmentProviders function, which I explained in previous video. Now we need to call this function at config file. Somewhere here. Provide lazy. And let's verify. Now bar interceptor works for root and works for feature, as well as foo interceptor works for everything. This function makes my setup reliable, tree-shakeable, and easy to manage. Let's summarize this lesson. Angular allows us to provide an array of something by using multi-true option for any of providers. Angular has a group of tokens which we should provide with multi-flag, like HTTP Interceptor token. Keep in mind that Angular resolves dependencies from the component up to the root. If you register something lower in the hierarchy, it overrides root provider. So provide HTTP clients and HTTP interceptors once in the root. If you accidentally provide it on a lazy level, you will override it for the feature. It will not work stable and you will have a lot of glitches. Prefer functional API over class-based ones. Angular's dependency injection system is flexible, but it's easy to make mistakes without fully understanding the hierarchy. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this video informative and helpful. Be sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next lesson. See you soon. Bye.